Hello, and welcome back to the Black Dental Reserve podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bridget White, and today we're joined by Dr. Ivory Hancock, a cosmetic dentist here in Washington, D.C. She is the president of two practices, Ivory Dental Center and Presidential Dental Group. A native Washingtonian, Dr. Hancock began her study of science at Howard University, where she majored in biology and minored in chemistry. She earned her Doctorate of Dental Medicine at Temple University's Kornberg School of Dentistry in Philadelphia. After completing her residency at Bronx-Lebanon Hospital Center in New York, she furthered her study of advanced cosmetic dentistry at the prestigious Rosenthal Institute at NYU School of Dentistry. I've known Ivory for several years since we were new dentists here in Washington, D.C., and it's been so wonderful to see her stand out as a provider. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm delighted.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to pursue dentistry.
Thank you for that introduction. I am, like you said, a native Washingtonian here from DC. Ended up going to Howard University in DC as well, and then on to Temple. Right after that, went up to New York and did my residency, and then moved back to DC and worked as an associate for a couple of years. And then pretty much right after that, started on the journey of practice ownership.
Wow. Yeah. And so how long have you had? You have two practices. Tell us just about their age. When did you open your first office?
So I opened the first office in April of 2010, and that was an acquisition. That one I bought from a dentist who was semi-retired at the time. And then the second practice opened in 2018, and that was a de novo or a startup.
Okay.
Practice. So it's been a couple of years now.
Yeah, you have a lot of experience. I mean, when did you always know you wanted to be a dentist? Did you know in high school and childhood, or is it did something happen that inspired you to go into dentistry?
So dentistry happened accidentally. I knew that I wanted to go into healthcare, and I was on that track. And then I just ended up shadowing and working in a few different offices, and I just kind of fell in love with this one particular dental office. I definitely didn't have dentistry. It's not like I come from a family of dentists or even, really the medical profession at all. Um, but yeah, dentistry, I just kind of stuck with it. And then I had another colleague of mine who was willing to take on some people to shadow. So I ended up shadowing at another dental office, and it just kept happening back to back. And then I kind of just ended up in the field of dentistry.
In terms of our viewership, we are sharing our narratives to explain our pathway to success. A lot of people they see dentists on TV. Most people will meet a dentist in their life. They have teeth, but no one really thinks about our training. And often it's so distinguished from medicine that people think of it. They make things up about it, and so it's interesting just to say, it is a pre-health prerequisite set, but then it is very different from medicine. And so today we're just talking about your experience, particularly as a practice owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what was the process like when you did decide to open your own office? Did you acquire the office from someone you knew? Did you have a someone looking for offices for you? How did that happen?
When I got back to DC, I was working as an associate for a couple of years and actually stumbled across an associate position part-time at a dental office downtown, which is now my current office. Just working a couple of days a week. And then the practice owner just said, you know what, I'm actually like to retire completely. What was nice about that particular office, my first office, is that it's very small. It's a boutique office. It has 3 chairs. I was, as an associate, able to go in and really just kind of fit in well. It wasn't overwhelming. There was a front desk person and two assistants and me. Um, I also had the retiring dentist there to kind of mentor me a little bit and ask questions and answer questions for me. So that it felt kind of like a turnkey situation and kind of easy for me to, you know, kind of transition into that. So it was definitely someone that I knew, and
Hmm.
it was a pretty easy transition for that one.
Yeah, it sounds like you had, even though it wasn't your parents or, a sibling or a family member, it was someone who gave you guided access, and then helped you really, get going. Because that I would imagine your second office sounds like it's very different. You said startup. So can you just explain to people, you acquiring an office, obviously it can be done if it's a parent, but you can
Yeah.
also buy an existing office, and essentially you buy the patients, right? You buy the patients and the equipment, and you go in the next day and you're already working, versus a startup where, Dr. Hancock, let us know exactly what that process was like.
So now that I am into the fifth year, going on the sixth year of the startup, I love it. With all the systems and processes that I set up now and the way that I've run things, and I was able to design the practice to kind of flow with the way that I want to run things. I'm like trying to picture again now how I would go and then acquire someone's practice. I'm kind of have like a mixed opinion, but very, like you said, very different experiences. The first one was very, very smooth. Everything was already set up. I came in. The person that I bought the practice from was also a Black woman. Um, so it was just a very easy thing for me to kind of transition into. After she completely stepped out of the office, there were some things, some learning curves and things like that where I didn't have her around on the business end of things, not so much clinically, but on the business end of things that I kind of learned the hard way. Um, and that was a challenge. But once I got beyond that, it was pretty smooth sailing with the acquisition. So I'm definitely a
Mhm.
fan of the acquisition. I'm a fan of both. I just love practice ownership.
I think in the profession, we're so used to prototypes, and it's easy to listen to one narrative and think that that's the only way, especially as Black dentists, right? There are very few of us. We're severely underrepresented. 3% of dentists are Black. And for those who may not know, we're 13% of the national population,
Yep.
and we are a big consumer group. And consumers of healthcare are called patients. And there's so much literature now that says that Black patients are seeking Black dentists, but there are so few, even in the District of Columbia. And so meeting their needs is something that I really want us to pay attention to. But let's go back to the startup. What obstacles did you face? What were the biggest challenges in the startup? Were they financial? Were they location? What were those obstacles?
Okay, so now that I am looking to expand beyond the first two offices, this is where I'm really struggling to for access to capital. I think that initially, like if you have been working for a few years and you'd like to open your own practice, I don't think that should, for most people, it's not dentists, it's not an issue because you have your nice little W-2s and, all of that. And so the banks are coming at you. Some of them are even predatory, lending out, over 100% of what's needed and things like that. So when it came time for me to buy my first practice, it was pretty easy. I'll be very honest about that. Even with the second one, with the financials from my first practice, it was relatively easy. Now that I want to really expand and kind of be put myself out there, be that face of dentistry, similar to some of our corporate counterparts in this
Mhm.
area, and like really have a name for myself. I'm getting a lot of denials, you know. So when you really want to expand, access to capital can be challenging. But I think, you know, for any dentists out there aspiring to have their own practice, like their first one, it should be pretty straightforward. And anyone can reach out to me. I can help you out and, you know, give names and resources of people that I know should be able to lend without an issue. I would say the biggest challenge with the startup was just not making money.
But like you said, expanding outside of that one or two offices to franchise and become more of a corporation, that seems to be a challenge. And well, what inspired you to grow to want to expand that way?
I already had the idea in my mind, but I was thinking to myself, how come us black dentists and doctors and entrepreneurs, how come we don't know a lot about, you know, private equity and all of that? And it might not be the answer for me. It might not be the answer for anyone thinking to really, really expand. But I do know that that is one of the avenues, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
you have several ways that you could expand, either what they call bootstraps, which is you're using equity from your first practice to grow your second to grow your third, and so on and so forth, kind of like I did with my first to my second. Your other option is to go to a bank, and then your other option is through private equity. And I just think that for a lot of minority and especially black people and black women in particular, we are just not very well versed on what the options are out there. But with that, I said, why don't we have, you know, our own corporation or our own ability to expand and have access to capital and try to get more of us into the profession, and then on a corporate level, once we are ready to go out there and start practicing, why don't we have more access to everything for ourselves and for, you know, our patients? So it was really that, you know, I said to myself, okay, I want a third or fourth or fifth practice. Then I said, why not have 50 practices?
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's what I want necessarily
Right.
right now, but why do we limit ourselves? Where
Exactly.
you
Hmm.
look up on Google and you see that there's practice owners out there that have 300 offices. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any black dentists doing that, but you know, if that was something that a person wanted, I would absolutely encourage a young black person to think and feel and believe and know that they could have that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's that what's missing is the data. There's no narrative. There's no blueprint, right? So we're so small in the profession, and then usually just because of our history in the country, having been cut out of education, wealth building, a lot of our wealth being burnt down because of fear.
Yeah.
We don't have that inheritance of wealth, and we don't have the blueprint for this type of growth. And then, yes, I do think there are some subjective elements that make access to capital difficult, because the business is a risk, right? So outside of that one or two businesses, then you become a different kind of entrepreneur. Are there unwritten things we think about when it comes to interest rates? Is our race incorporated into that type of expansion? Where are we located? What's the demographic? What's the income of that demographic? So I
Yep.
think that there are a lot of unsaid, unwritten pieces of information, but that's why it's important for us to talk about our narrative. In this era, you shouldn't feel like you have to figure it out for yourself. It's only going to be easier if you have somebody, the person coming behind you can come to you and know exactly what to do. And I always say the opportunity cost, right? Like all your years of trial and error are cutting you out of earned income, earned money, wealth building, wealth growth. And the reality is, it's about Black economic mobility. And the economists have done the research. They know which areas we need to represent in order to build wealth. But there are obstacles. There is discrimination. There is fear. There is mistrust. There's so many things going on. So that's why I really do want to get into it.
We'll tend to think small, and my whole thing that I wanted to kind of push here on this podcast for anyone that's listening is just being intentional, knowing what you want, asking questions, and knowing that you're worth it. I mean, that's the biggest thing, that take home message that I can say for anyone out there wanting to have their own business or expand or, be a front runner.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Being intentional, and that you're more than qualified, you're more than capable, you're more than enough. More than, and if anything, the research shows Black women, we're the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. We are successful. We actually outlived that 5-year mark. We're still here, right? So there's every reason for you to succeed. I think that's really important. And the confidence thing comes with practice, but we can't ignore the fact that the society also has ill will towards us. And there's a lot going on. It's almost like you have negative stereotypes that are constantly being perpetuated. There's politics going on. Healthcare is in crisis. We never talk about the fact that racism is expensive. It's costing the government hundreds of billions of dollars, and also lives.
Yeah.
And
about all of this stuff that's working against us all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it's important to talk to our peers, ask a lot of questions, and just to be intentional. Don't let life just run you. You got to be strong mentally and know that you're taking charge of your life and what you want.
Yeah. For people who may not understand how intentional goal setting can apply to a dental practice, just give us a little overview of production, how practices make money, overhead, production, and collection. Yeah, this is that stuff. Behind the scenes, this is all we talk about. And Dr. Hancock, she gave me some great algorithms to use that I have incorporated. And it really was like looking in the mirror at all the blemishes. I mean, it really is true. You have a skill set to help people improve their quality of life, live longer, feel more confident. Our industry is aesthetics as well. And there's so many procedures that patients they would never know to ask for, right? And it's our job to offer them the best possible service, right? So I think that but again, how we apply it to the business structure, I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah. So we are wanting to definitely do comprehensive treatment planning, like you just mentioned. And we are wanting to educate our patients on the oral systemic link, and just letting them know how important oral health is to their overall health. So I think having that in mind and, just applying that to every single patient is half the battle. A lot of us don't especially starting out, don't have the confidence to necessarily talk about the spectrum, like you said, all the way from, gum disease to something aesthetic like Botox or, a veneer or something like that. And that comes with just, practice. I think that being okay with understanding that and also understanding your numbers is critical. So, going back to what you were saying about being intentional, my intention for every single patient is to let them know their entire comprehensive treatment plan. Does that mean that I'm pushing that on them? Does that mean that I'm letting them know that on day one? No. But I feel like I haven't done my job if I don't let a patient know everything that is out there for them in order to be their best self. And then also along with that, I believe that you have to be intentional on what the direction that you want your practice to go in. And you do that by numbers. And I can get, like we had our conversation, I can get really deep into that. I don't know for the sake of time, but yeah, you're balancing a lot. You're wanting the best for your patient and wanting to offer them everything, but also keeping in mind that you're being intentional about your profitability as a business.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and once I kind of, whatever it might be for the audience out there listening, once I decided in my mind what I wanted from my patients and what I wanted from my practice, it became a lot easier to run the business.
Yeah, I would, for me, similar to Dr. Hancock, similar to you, my parents are not dentists. My cousins aren't dentists. I had black dentists. I did. I had a black orthodontist, a
Yeah.
black oral surgeon. Growing up in Philadelphia, there were several black professionals.
Okay.
Yeah. However, I had no idea that I was going to run a business. I didn't know. When I finally decided to buy a practice, I bought a small office as well. My office is 3 chairs. I was like, what can I manage? And I was reading articles and they said, remember, you're buying a business, not a dental office. And I thought, well, what's the difference? But, learning on the job, I realized the bottom line, as when we're new dentists, of course, we're like, okay, let me apply what I've learned and all those theories. What does the Journal of American Dental Association say? Blah, blah, blah. But once you've been practicing, you are now an entrepreneur. You're growing your family. You're taking care of your elders. You're trying to create a legacy for yourself and also enjoy the fruits of your labor, your hard work.
And
Yeah.
if you are not running the business efficiently, the bottom line is you cannot take care of your patients. That's just it. It's people sometimes have a hard time accepting, okay, this is a business, like you're saying. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're not healthy, if you're not happy as a practice owner, as a provider, if you're not profitable as a provider, you're not going to be able to be there fully for your patients. And I mean that, you know, emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
just health overall, just physically being able to be there and stand there and do these procedures. And also down to materials. So you want to offer, the best in materials out there for your patients, the best brands that are going to be long standing and things like that. So it's okay. And I think, a lot of the time as women, in particular Black women, I think we say, oh, we can't think of this as a business, or we just have to worry about taking care of everyone and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, or, we have to think small, or we can't have this or that. But I think once you really step into like who you truly are as a provider and as a business owner, you understand how it works and you see the way that everyone else out here is running their business.
Right. Yeah. And with intention and with guidance and already, if you and your friends are sitting around talking about your businesses, just like real estate, just like their investment portfolios, the same thing is applying to how they're running their dental practices. I completely agree. And like you said, at the end of the day, the patients will suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, because of the inequitable structure of healthcare and dental care in our country, I really want to get into this quote unquote dental insurance bit because
Yeah.
um, patients, unfortunately, patients are paying for a benefit that doesn't really offer them the type of support that they need for their optimal dental care. And then on the provider side, we're trying to participate in a program that doesn't allow us to properly and efficiently run our businesses. You and I talked about insurance fees, and if you could just discuss that, what an insurance fee is for a provider and how that fee grows and changes.
Well, that also is a controversial topic. I think that just as we mentioned, being concerned about lending, I think that as Black providers, we should also be concerned about the fee schedule that we are being assigned. And just making sure that these fee schedules are similar to our counterparts and across the board. They say that, it's the area, the zip code and things like that. Basically, the definition of the fee schedule is the assigned uh, amount of money that the insurance company will pay out for a particular procedure. Different than my own fee or our own fee.
In terms of our Black community, our Black patients, I mean, the evidence is now written. Black dentists are more likely to see patients that have insurance than our white peers, number one. Number two, we are servicing about 50% of the Black patient population. So, you combine that with your compassion for your own community and then understanding that a patient should be able to use their benefit to further their health. But then your back is up against the wall for an insurance company that's not even paying you your worth. So it's like that's where that wage inequality plays in. These are gems, because who would think? I mean, if you went to a dental school, who would think that you have a DMD? What's the big deal? You can do as well as me. I mean, even though my dad's a dentist, even though my brother's an orthodontist, you got your DMD and you're a great dentist. Why are you complaining?
Knowing that these are obstacles, and it is truth, is
Right.
important for people to know.
Yeah, absolutely. It should empower everyone. I say that any type of injustice, any type of inequality affects the whole nation. It affects our population wellness. It affects our outcomes, our potential to pursue our dreams.
Yep.
And I think that especially as a cosmetic dentist, your goal is to one thing that a lot of people will say is gratifying about dentistry is you're improving someone's quality of life, their oral health, their general health,
Yep.
and their ability to live a long, healthier, happier life. And I wanted to give you a chance to talk about the type of procedures that you offer as a cosmetic dentist. A lot of people, they see something on, reality TV, and they may not know exactly what you do as a cosmetic dentist.
Okay. So as a first, I mean, I see myself as a cosmetic dentist because I look at everything from an aesthetic standpoint. So the moment the patient walks in the door, I immediately start to have a visual of a certain smile. It doesn't, there is no definition of perfect smile or anything like that, but I'll usually start from there. I like to listen to the patient and kind of understand what their goals are. And I will have a visual in my mind and kind of take it from there. So that's my definition of being a cosmetic or an aesthetic dentist, is being able to have that vision of what you see the end result being and kind of working your way backwards from there. And so it's not just about doing 20 veneers. It might be, it definitely involves the entire face, the skin, the lips, all of that. And as well, their health. So there's no way that I'm going to want to, it doesn't matter how much money the person has to afford whatever, but I'm not going to want to, no matter what the visual is I have in my mind, take a person that has unhealthy gums and start to, do veneers. That's why I'm saying that the aesthetics is the end goal, and you can work backwards from there, but the foundation has to be health, oral health. So, um, so yeah, I think, the whole spectrum is what the definition of a cosmetic dentist is.
I explain to people that it's an aesthetic zone, right? So, and
Mhm.
it's so funny because especially in our timeline as
Yeah.
relatively young dentists, but not
Yeah.
new dentists.
Oh,
We've grown up with the gold crowns. We've grown up with the silver fillings, the metal clasp attachments that were not necessarily as aesthetic as the industry has become. Today, the materials are based on aesthetics. Today we live in a visual medium. People are communicating, whether in person or otherwise, but they're looking at each other all day. And so let's talk about in particular your patient demographic.
sure.
Being in DC, you've got access to this international population. Yeah,
Yeah. The exact breakdown or anything, but I mean, it is a sort of a melting pot around here. So I see a very wide range of patients, and it's always surprising. Like I do have that, black patient that comes in and they're saying, I've been looking for a black dentist. I never knew you were right here. And I, have a retail space and I have lights everywhere and, but I think being able to get ourselves out there has at least been somewhat of a challenge to me because when you promote yourself, it's not like you're saying, I am a African American female dentist. You don't do SEO for that. And
right.
it, it kind of has to be word of mouth and things like that. But I think I'm still not seeing as many black patients as as I could be. So
Right.
even with us seeing a lot of them, I still think that for some of us and in certain areas, we could be helping more.
Oh, definitely. I think that I, I'm well into the 17th year of practice, and I'm still hearing that at least weekly. I have patients, they'll tell me, "Oh my gosh, I came because my cousin comes here, or I saw your video, talking about oral care, and I thought maybe I can see her too." And I'm thinking, yes, I'm actually a family dentist. But that's disappointing. And I tell people that you can apply this to any industry. It's not that we do dentistry differently because we're black. It's the same dentistry. Yes, to argue, the American Dental Association argues that cultural competence should not be a requirement for accreditation for dental schools because the dentistry is not based on culture. But the application of healthcare has many subjective elements. And my lived experience as an African American in America, that applies every day in everything that I do. Everything.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think on the other side of the seesaw is the patient feeling that their provider should be able to be sympathetic to their needs, understand the hardships that they're coming from. I've noticed that a lot of people, we have colleagues, they don't know the history of Jim Crow. They don't know about segregation. They don't realize that
Or
even our generation is affected by a legacy of that, where their parents didn't trust dentists, or they didn't talk about oral care, or they couldn't prioritize it because they were trying to just eat and pay rent.
yeah,
So, in your opinion, when you are seeing our black patients,
yeah.
what do you see, like, in terms of trends, in terms of their needs or chief concerns, or just their energy about dental care?
It varies, but I have those with the severe gum disease that are very emotional. They know it's something that's not good, but they've just never really met a dentist where they felt like they could open up and really talk about their fears or talk about their self-esteem around their oral health or whatever. And so some of the conversations go like that.
Mm-hmm.
um, where I'm just like trying to be a friend and just, not talk to them like a provider, but just like, we're going to get through this, we're going to tackle this, and, things like that. On up to those with the same conditions that are like, okay, where are my veneers? And I'm like, you're veneers. Well, you're not getting whitening and you're not getting ortho. We're cleaning your teeth first for several months until it's, healthy.
Right.
That just shows, I would say if I had to think of any trend, it would start with the gum health and just the psychology around it. Some thinking it's way, way worse and like being ashamed on up to just really not understanding at all that they
Right.
have, gum disease. And I've seen that, I think, a little bit more with Black patients than I can say that I see in, white patients or others. Um, so,
The numbers show that we are disproportionately um, suffering from periodontal disease
that's
and
my thing,
higher.
to have those numbers. Thank you, Doctor. I
But
knew
for
it.
those that, for those of y'all who don't know, I was a policy major in college years before. I was a late bloomer with healthcare, so I became a dentist after the towers came down.
Yeah,
But honestly, I always thought about the reality that healthcare is a big issue for policy, and there's inequities. But yeah, it sounds like your approach, your philosophy of comprehensive dental care suits all of your patients, but in combination with you being a sympathetic, compassionate provider who happens to be Black and a native Washingtonian, I would imagine that your patients are relieved to meet you and may actually feel like they can let their guard down and express their needs without feeling the shame or embarrassment that they may otherwise feel with providers who don't look like them, or just in general. I think as people have this image that the dentist is, we're like giving them a bad report card, or we're judging you. And I tell people, I'm like, dentists don't judge.
from from the reality, and
Yeah.
especially like when they first come in, I'm like, I applaud you. That
Yeah, right.
I'm doing is judging you now. If you've come in and you've come in and you've come in and you've come in, and we've had a lot of conversations about things, and it's supposed to be a partnership, and then we're not doing the things that we discussed that you should be doing, sometimes I think then it can be a little bit more of a difficult conversation. But I always tell everyone, when you just show up here on the first day, that is when you have all of, this is a fresh, clean slate. So
Yes.
tell people that even that I meet out and they end up finding out that I'm a dentist, and then they think I'm going to judge them. I'm like, I will never judge you. I won't judge anyone, but I will never especially judge you on day one.
Right.
So, but I have to be honest, when we've been working together and we've finally gotten to a certain place, and then you kind of take, but that's life as well. But that's sometimes where the relationship can go in a different direction.
hmm Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a long. I say dental. It's called dental fatigue. Some people. I actually use this. The Sisyphus, the Greek, he was cursed by the gods, and he had to roll that boulder up the hill, and it rolled back down. I'm like, that's your teeth. You got to brush and floss every day. I'm sorry, you did it
Yeah.
yesterday. Well, but just to wrap up, what
Yeah.
advice do you have for the new practicing dentist,
Okay.
perhaps the new business owner, who's starting to
Oh,
feel overwhelmed
yeah.
and thinks, what have I done? What advice do you have for her in terms of trying to reach her goals and get her practice where she wants it to be?
Going back to our favorite word of the show, intentionality. Know what you want. When you start your practice, don't just open up the practice and let the practice just run you. Don't hire people and let them, run you. You have to really step into your role as a leader. And just because we're dentists, just because we're business owners, doesn't mean we're always a leader. And I think when it comes to, helping someone or, a person that's just starting their practice, but I think it just comes back to intentionality and knowing what you want and being the leader that you truly are.
Wow. Well, that's perfect. Yeah, I think well, you're quite the inspiration and you're in downtown DC. So, for our listeners, please reach out and hopefully you've learned something today here on the Black Dental Reserve podcast.
And
All right.
also, right before we go, I mean, if there is any dentists out there who are, new dentists, whether they are business owners or not, I think I can speak for you and definitely for myself, Dr. White, that I would love to talk to you all and, lend anything that I can to help out another dentist.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is for. We don't have that blueprint yet, but now we are laying down our narrative for pathways to success and sharing it so that we can change the data and not feel like we're pioneers all the time. So this is wonderful. It's a great time. As my mother always says, there's never ever been such a great moment for the advancement of the community and opportunity for ourselves. So take care. Have a good weekend. We will touch base and continue to keep people smiling.